What's happening, party people? The final installment in the network marketing rabbit hole. This is called The Bad and the Ugly. In every endeavor that we engage upon, there will be trial and tribulation. There will be disappointments. There will be some betrayals. There will be some letdowns. That is the course of growth, maturity, discernment, and delineation between those who are of our like mind and aspiration and those who are not. Coming into the industry of network marketing over a decade ago, I was new, I was bushy-eyed and no, bushy-eyed, bushy-tailed and bright-eyed. I was excited, I was naive. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I didn't understand the power of human connection, human intention. And I learned these things as we progressed in that journey. So the first major disappointment that I experienced was betrayal. There was a gentleman that we were working with, and he had talked about all of his connections and his ability to get people involved, and we saw that he was a person of influence. He could fill up a room, and he did what he said he was going to do. He brought a lot of people into our business. Unfortunately, he brought them in through deception. He brought them in through fake promises and hype, and we had no idea because we were not with him at the time. We just saw people coming into the business. And when you're new in business and you're experiencing a lot of growth, you don't really tend to look at how the growth is actually taking place. You just think everything is working the way it's supposed to be. So you're not as likely to have a microscope and really be looking, or magnifying glass and looking at the dynamics of why are so many people coming in so quickly. You just think, hey, this is a result of all the hard work we've been doing, and we haven't been seeing a lot of results, and finally we're seeing results. And another part of this is you start to take more credit than you deserve. You really start to think that this momentum is because of you, because you've been consistent, because you've been showing up every day, because you've been doing the right things and you've been doing it the right way, and it's because of that and that alone that this explosion is happening. Not that one will discredit the individual that's bringing the people in, but you sometimes, and I'm saying you, me, I was guilty of this. I was just thinking, hey, I've been grinding, and now I'm seeing the fruit of that labor. Well, long story short, about 90% of those people that came in, they also left relatively quickly because they realized that all of these false promises that this gentleman had been putting their way were just that. And there was nothing for them to hold on to. There was no relationship. I didn't know these people. I only knew them through him. And I didn't take the time to cultivate that relationship. So it was a lesson that I learned. But it was the first experience that I remember vividly coming into this business. And so that was the first one. The second major one was working with someone, and I had met this gentleman in Los Angeles, and he had presented himself as a very successful entrepreneur, businessman, investor, and I had no reason to think that he was lying, and he did everything the right way in the beginning. He took full responsibility. He took ownership of the business. He was a good teammate, a good partner. He eventually started running the meetings. So we would have these meetings usually 2 or 3 times a day in order to share the opportunity. And then eventually, in a short period of time, he started running the meetings. He took them over because I was going back and forth between LA and New York. And again, I'm giving you the truncated version. I get a phone call from someone that I was building a friendship with that was in the same company, but we were cross-line. We were not connected business-wise in the company, but we were building a friendship. And he said, hey, can you get this person to call me? Because I've been calling them. They haven't called me back. I was like, well, what's the issue? And they were like, oh, well, they owe me about $8,000 and I just want my money. And I was like, well, why do they owe you $8,000? Well, because they told me they had this investment. If I put money in, I could at least get a 50% return. And I was like, well, why didn't you come to me before making that decision? Because the only reason you would have said yes to him was because of you and I's relationship. So why didn't you run that by me first and just say, hey, Ed, I'm about to put some money with this guy. What do you think? Because I would have told you, I don't know him like that. So I was a little annoyed with the person that was calling me, because I was like, well, why didn't you come to me first? Like, why would you throw that money down before doing at least a reference check, right? So based on that conversation, I said, I'll let him know to get in touch with you. And he said that he would. Over the next 4 to 8 weeks, I got multiple phone calls from several individuals that were with us in Los Angeles that were living there. And these were people who had some of them had put a significant portion of their life savings in his hands based on what he was telling them, because he was a really good salesman, but in actuality, he was a really good con man. And he ended up fleecing several people, and we're talking upwards of $60,000 to $80,000 all told, just from that little group. I don't know what he was doing anywhere else. And it was funny because you know how sometimes you look back and you start to play things in your mind and you're like, oh, that was a flag and I missed it. Oh, that was a flag and I missed it. So long story short, this person, ripped off these people. I felt horrible because I was edifying him and I was vouching for him basically because he was doing all the right things in terms of the business, and I didn't know that he was having these conversations with these people and getting their money. And I said the same thing to all of them though. I said, why didn't you run it by me first? Just ask, like, hey, I'm about to do this. What do you think? I'm not your dad. I'm not your boss. But again, why wouldn't you do a reference check before laying down 30 or 40 grand? So again, I was a little annoyed that they didn't do any due diligence. But again, I just felt bad. So he disappeared. And that was the second major disappointment / betrayal that I experienced. And here's the crazy thing. I'm like, well, I know some of them were thinking it, they didn't say it, but they were like, well, how do they know I'm not in on this? Like maybe Ed and this guy are working together. Because again, I was newly building in that market. So everyone that I was working with, it was relatively new. We were all building a new relationship. So I was like, man. And I just said, hey, truth always wills out. You'll know who I am because of how I show up consistently, not a month from now, not 12 months from now, but 3, 5, 10 years from now. You'll know who I am. And that's exactly what happened. But still, I just didn't like being in that position. And it really helped me to do a better job of screening, asking better questions. And if someone is speaking about their success, how to verify that, how to ask and seek documentation. There's always a way, not always, but in most cases you can verify what people are telling you. And we all know with Fakebook / Facebook, a lot of people like to promote themselves to be more than what they are. But that was the second major hurdle. And obviously, the business that I was building in LA took a bit of a hit because of it. But we were able to overcome it because, again, I think and I believe when you're doing the right thing and you are a person of integrity and you show up every day, people will see that. And most people will move past it because we all have had situations, most of us, where like a fool gets into your circle. Somebody who is unscrupulous finds their way into your network, somebody who's unethical or immoral. And as soon as you identify it, of course, you get rid of it. You got to prune the tree, right? But it just happens. And again, I'm learning. I'm new. So I learned a lot and I got better. I really did, about teaching people how to think, how to process. And I created this level of accountability within the organization that I was building so that everybody was very clear no one is above reproach. We are all accountable to each other. And just because many of you may look at me as the leader of the entire group, so to speak, or the mentor, that doesn't mean that I'm beyond reproach. It doesn't mean that I get to go around and act a fool and you all are supposed to look the other way because I'm the leader and you don't want to say anything that's going to put me in a negative light. And the reason I created that accountability is because I saw these things happening. A lot of times people who are successful or in leadership positions, they will take advantage of it. You all have heard countless stories, unfortunately, of the pastor, for example, who ends up having various relationships throughout the congregation or stealing or both. Okay, just as an example. And it doesn't get talked about. The pastor is not put on blast because people don't want to have that negative impact on the church because the church is doing a lot of good. So they're like, well, man, what do we do? And I mean, you know, this is a pattern, right? I mean, and we've seen it to horrible degrees, right? I mean, it's all bad, but you know, if you look at the Catholic Church, another example, when there's systematic pedophilia and the church is covering it up because they don't want the church to get a black eye, because they're like, well, man, the church is doing a lot of good. Man, if we highlight this or if we acknowledge it, it's going to get church. So again, like this happens when you have any level of success and power and influence. People start doing stupid stuff because they think they can get away with it. So I'm utilizing more discernment. I've created a really strong environment of accountability. And it's not to say that we didn't have issues that popped up, but you know what? We addressed them quickly. And we had honest conversation. And it's not about castigating someone, because we all, like, I really wanted to make it clear we're flawed, we're human beings, we're not perfect, but there is a standard of behavior, excellence, and expectation that comes with being a part of this group. And I'm expecting it of you, and I expect you to expect it of me, because I'm not going to do something that's going to make you, put you in a negative light. I'm not going to do something that's going to embarrass you. And ladies and gentlemen, let me share something with you. The number of people that came to me with their grievances and personal conversations around so-called leaders who were doing some foul stuff, it was crazy. And people felt comfortable coming to me. And these are people that were not only in my business, but people that were not in my business, but were in the company. They were very comfortable coming to me because they just felt like I was a trustworthy person. I wasn't doing stupid stuff, and I wasn't. I'm not trying to say that I'm holier than thou, but I'm saying that, again, I would never do something to that you have to apologize for, that you have to feel embarrassed about, that's going to make somebody uncomfortable. Like, I just don't move that way, okay? So I was learning so much about the ugly side of the business, the ugly side of this industry, where because there's no checks and balances, because there's no barrier of entry, because there's no governing bodies, you have a lot of people doing a lot of crazy stuff, and people are just looking the other way because this particular person might be a high producer. They might be bringing in a lot of sales. They might be building a successful organization. So the company overall will be very forgiving of that because they're looking at the bottom line. And this is not unique to network marketing, but I'm talking about my experience in network marketing, because you've heard oftentimes about the Hollywood A-lister who comes to the set and they're high, but because they hit their marks and they're delivering a good performance, everyone's going to look the other way, that this person has an addiction problem, as long as they're doing their job, because it's all about making sure a good quality product in terms of the film comes out. So it happens all the time, okay? Doesn't mean that we should do it, doesn't make it right. And so I started to learn and understand that, okay, people are flawed, and some people don't take the assignment of leadership as seriously as I do. Some people would rather use it as a means of power, manipulation, selfishness, narcissism, self-aggrandizement, et cetera, et cetera. And that's just going to be a part of the process. And I'm going to have to probably work with some people that I don't like, that I don't care for, but it's part of the business. So that is what it is. All right. It's kind of like for those of you that have a job and maybe you have to work with a colleague that you would never choose to hang out with, or you have a superior that you would never choose to follow. You just wouldn't, but because of your job situation, that's just the hierarchy and you got to deal with it. There are people in the military. They have to submit to the authority of someone who's a scumbag. But that's just, these are life situations that we all have to deal with. So I just made a commitment to myself that anyone that came into an environment that I was responsible for, that I created, they would feel good, they would feel safe, they would feel protected, and they would feel like they could have a chance to grow and flourish and thrive. And that was my focus. Now, because of that, I have incredible relationships to this very day. I've been out of the industry for years. And these things took place and these things happened years ago. But there are people, because of the way that I led and the way that I do business, we're still close to this very day. They will call and tell me about their latest opportunity, their jobs, their kids, their families, their adventures, their growth. And I'm really, really grateful for that. But you can always tell, like, you can't fake this. If you're someone who does what they say and says what they do, people will honor you for years. They'll speak your name. My name was being spoken from the stage of that company long after I had gone. I was gone, like I had left the company, and they were still speaking my name from stage. So again, I'm not saying that to big up myself. I'm saying that when you do things at a certain level of excellence, people are going to respond and they will remember. They will remember. Now, here's the big one. Those are all significant in terms of the lessons learned, but the big one was getting the rug pulled out from underneath me, because I was still young in the business. I was still young in the arena of success in business. And I thought it was going to last forever. Any of y'all ever had that experience where, and I'm really talking to entrepreneurs. Actually, let me take that back, because some of you have had really great jobs and you really thought you were going to be with this company until you retired. And then you got that notice, or there were two security people waiting for you at your desk and you were given 10 minutes to vacate the premises. So again, it's not unique to our industry of network marketing. It happens in every arena of business, employment, etc. Okay? So here I am going along, and I'm thinking intellectually and with my heart, hey, I've created something really special. Hey, I've got one of the biggest organizations in the entire company. Hey, we're doing things that have never been done before. Hey, we have multiple 7-figure earners in our organization, multiple 6-figure earners, multiple 5-figure earners. We have all these people having all the success in our group. We're doing things the right way. This is awesome. And I'm thinking, because we're doing things the right way, that it's going to last forever. I never, ever, ever suspected or thought that the company would just go out of business because of poor decisions, poor leadership, and no accountability and no one taking responsibility. But that's exactly what happened. And so, long story short, again, I'm just going to give you the short version. They stopped paying us, and then boom, it was a wrap. Company went bankrupt. Now, here's the thing. It wasn't, to me, I wasn't upset about not being paid. I thought in my mind, I was thinking, well, we could figure that out. It was how they responded, how the so-called leadership responded. And that was the most disappointing aspect of it, was the fact that no one wanted to take responsibility. Everybody wanted to play the blame game. Everybody wanted to make excuses. And to make it worse, people that whose lives were ruined, they were blamed, they were attacked because they didn't want to stick it out, because they didn't want to put their family through any more suffering than they already had. And I just thought, this is the worst thing I've ever experienced. So that's like the rug getting pulled out from underneath you. It's kind of like if you're married and you find out the person you're married to is a pedophile. That's how it felt. You're like, wait a minute, who the hell are you? And what a horrible, disgusting person you are. And how in the world did I get here? That's how it felt to me. So that was a betrayal of all betrayals. And then learning in that process that everybody doesn't experience it the same way. And sometimes people make decisions based on whatever their survival situation is. And so people may choose to look the other way. People may choose to keep quiet about things that they really know they shouldn't be keeping quiet about because they want to keep the lights on. They want to maintain their lifestyle. They want to, whatever their reasons are. And for me, learning those lessons, like, hey, everybody's not going to have the same standard when it comes to responding to trial and tribulation. You'll hear about this again. It happens in politics where someone says, well, I can't align myself with this person because this person is immoral, unethical, and they have no leadership skills and they don't care about our country. They only care about themselves. So someone says, well, I'm not going to align with that. Everybody's like, well, if you do that, you're ruining your career. Like you're going to be destroyed. And the person is like, well, so be it. But I can't live with myself. And if I'm destroyed, so what? I'm going to stand for what's right. Like principles and your value system, they only matter when that's all you have, when everything else is stripped away. Like we were in dire straits. Like it was bad for us, for our family. Like it was bad. Like I knew I was going to have to start all over again. I knew that the lifestyle that we had built up and accumulated, and like I knew all that was going to have to be, rebuilt, and it was hard. It's a journey, but it's a process. But I knew that looking back on that moment, I would always be able to say, without revising history, without changing the story to make myself look good, I would always be able to say I did the right thing. And I was willing to sacrifice. I was willing to put my family in harm's way. In terms of, it's not really harm. My family, they just weren't able to, we're not taking vacations every other month. We're not going out to the 5-star restaurants. Like all that stuff was like, we wanted to put that on the shelf for a while because here comes the rebuild. So, so that part was hard, but making the decision was easy. Making the decision was easy because I was very fortunate and am very fortunate to have great mentorship in my life, to have great people in my life who stand for something, who have sacrificed so much so that I can have the luxury to pursue my dreams and goals. So it was rough though, and it took time. And I have conversations with people who are still very much impacted by what transpired. Because we had built up a utopia. We had built up something that many people were envious of because there was so much great energy and so much love and there was so much joy. We had so much adventure. And don't get me wrong, I had way more positive experiences than negative ones. But I think you all can understand, again, you may be with someone and you can have a great ride. But if they do something, like if you find out that your mate is a pedophile, like that one instance, that one discovery, it weighs so much more than the 900 things that you did that were great together. That one thing, it puts a dimmer over everything else. You understand? So that was the experience, but it was an incredible learning and growth experience. Now, understand that in the industry of network marketing, because there are no checks and balances, because there's no barrier of entry, because there's no governing body, because it's the wild, wild west, because any idiot can start a company and any idiot can join, because you have all those variables, you're going to be more susceptible to people that are not going to be ethical. They're not going to be moral. They're not going to be leaders. They're going to be leeches. And you just have to learn how to discern your way through that process. And you have to know the difference between happy talk and people just trying to keep you dangling a carrot so they can keep their paychecks versus people that are legitimately willing to put their money where their mouth is, and they say to you, look, tell me what your goal is. Let's look at this time frame. And if you don't see some level of definitive results over these next 90, 180 days, then boom, you're with the wrong leader or you're in the wrong company. If people are not willing to do that, then there's a problem. And I'm not saying that you have to be earning, $10,000 a month in three months or 180 days. I'm saying that you have to have some definitive results, some growth and progress based on what they're teaching, because if you can't do that, something's wrong. Something's wrong. So there's a lot of lessons that you can learn. If you're evaluating the industry, if you're evaluating a company, go back and look at all the videos that I've done and ask those questions and know what to look for, and understand that you're not going to have everything just right. Okay, I don't want to imply that everything's going to be perfect, and I certainly don't want to imply that everybody's going to be an awesome mentor or leader. That's not going to happen. However, there are certain standards that you have to have for yourself that for you have to be met. And I'm talking about standards of communication, integrity, leadership, transparency. Like, those things have to be in place. The other stuff is semantics. You can work through that. And you can determine after a certain period of time if you want to be a part of this process, if you want to continue or not. Because a lot of it is going to be up to you for sure. But you do want to have some criteria in order to make a decision that will allow you to have a great experience at the end of the day. So hopefully you got some value from this series. Hopefully I gave you some additional insight. Again, I don't have any regrets at all. Actually, let me take that back. The only regret that I have is that I could have appreciated it more. I could have really enjoyed the process more. It's kind of like when you talk to people and you say, man, you were on this ride, and they always look back and they say, man, I was so busy grinding, or I was so busy chasing the next thing that I didn't really take time to enjoy it. I really would have liked, if I could do something over, I would be more present. I was appreciative, but I probably could have been even more appreciative. But those are just a couple of things that I would like to, that I have now, being much more appreciative of what's happening presently. I'm incredibly grateful for the business partners that I have, the business that I do, that we do now. I'm really grateful for that. I'm really grateful for the opportunities that I get as a keynote speaker and trainer and as a coach to other people. Like, I don't take any of that for granted. I'm very joyful about those things. And I don't know that I would have the same level of appreciation and joy for these things and the new people in my life that I've aligned myself with, if I didn't go through all that other stuff. You know what I'm saying? So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Hope you have an awesome and amazing day. And we'll see you on a next series. You want to say anything, son, before we sign off?
No.
This is my son. He did his thing this morning. He had a soccer game, and then he had basketball practice. And we've been hanging out with his sister for the last, several weeks. She's back in school now. So anyway, we out of here. Y'all have a great day. Deuces.